The city of Sochi is stretching along the Black Sea coast for 145 kilometers. It is the longest city both in Russia and on the mainland of Eurasia. A peculiar geographical situation of the resort, a favorable climate of this unique place, and the beauty of nature attract not only holidaymakers from all corners of Russia, but also from other countries. Majestic snow-capped peaks of the Great Caucasian Range that go high up to 3,000 meters above the sea level shelter Sochi from cold air. The Black Sea makes the climate milder. Administratively, the bigger Sochi consists of 4 districts: Lazarevskaya, Central, that is often called Sochi, Osta, and Adler. It is the district of Adler where a well-known mountainous village of Krasnaya Polyana is located. It is a picturesque spot, magnificent in any season. No wonder it is frequently called a small Russian Switzerland. One can't imagine the modern Krasnaya Polyana without a chain of chairlifts, cozy cafes and restaurants, hotels and recreation homes. The village is developing so intensively that now Sochi is among the 3 official candidates to host the Winter Olympic Games of 2014. A nice and modern highway of Krasnaya Polyana leads from Adler to the village. On its 12th kilometer, in the valley of the river Mzinta, there is a state trout breeding farm, Adler. Today it is considered to be the biggest trout breeding farm in Russia, where they rear more than 700 tons of marketable fish a year. They started artificial trout breeding in Canada in the 19th century. In 1894, it was first brought to Europe. It appeared in Russia only in 1911, when it was brought to Moscow and St. Petersburg from Germany. This fish was reared purely for the royal table, hence its nickname, Tsar's fish. During the Second World War in the 40th of the 20th century, broodmare schools of fish were destroyed, and only in 1947 rainbow trout was brought to Russia from Czechoslovakia for the second time. Rainbow trout belongs to the Pacific Ocean salmon family. The nearest trout's relatives are Siberian salmon, blueback salmon, hunchback salmon, but unlike these species, trout doesn't die after spawning. Living in wild, it can spawn from 5 to 8 times, lives up to 12 years and can weigh 35 kilos. We keep 30,000 females and 3,500 males of 5 different species of rainbow trout in Adler Trout Breeding Farm. 3 of them are the breeds that were imported: Kamloops trout, Donaldson's trout, and steelhead trout. 2 other breeds were reared here in the farm. They are Trout Adler and Adler Amber trout. Trout starts spawning when it is 2 years old. The spawning season lasts from September till March. By this time, the fish of 3, 4, 5 years old are removed from big developing ponds to smaller age ones. But before emptying it into the water, the fish is carefully sorted out, males and females separately. The busiest time comes in the farm. Every Monday and Thursday, regardless of any weather or holidays, the farmers check the females as to maturing. The fish is seined, then taken out of the water with landing nets and put on a special table with a leather trough. The trough is filled with water so that the fish stays alive while being checked. Mature fish is emptied into the tub. Those that are not mature enough go back to the pond. Then the mature females with spawn are carried to the incubator to be drawn off the spawn. A worker puts on a special glove and snatches the fish by the tail out of the water. Then he presses it to his stomach firmly, fixes its head and the tail, and then strains spawn or milk off. A test tube full of milk is emptied into the enamel basin. Then some spawn is added, and 40 seconds later the process of impregnation is over. In wild nature, only 4% of spawn is impregnated, while in the incubator 85%. During the spawning time, a mature female trout can have from 3 to 7,000 spawns. In average, 4,500. Only 50 or 60% of spawns stay alive and develop into big fish. Only the most experienced and highly skilled specialists of the trout breeding farm are entrusted with the spawn draw-off. After the impregnation, the spawn is washed and placed into a special incubation device. This is a dark flask of 100 liters. A grate is put underneath, the spawn is laid out, the water is supplied from below, it flows through the spawns and then out from the top. Approximately 40 days later, that is the 2/3 of the incubation time, an embryo is matured, eyes appear on the spawn. This stage is called a stage of an eye. At this stage, the spawn is transferred to the nurseries, where it is laid on the grate by one layer. The spawns are protected from the sunlight, and 2-3 days later, tadpoles start turning up. They fall down into the water and their envelopes stay on the grate. Baby trouts are born with a large supply of nutritious yolk that they keep in enormous yellow bellies. Tadpoles have been receiving nourishment from this bag for the first few days. When the whole supply of the yolk is over, they rise to the surface of the water for the first time, where they breathe a tiny bubble of air in and fill their air bladder with it. Various natural factors affect the process of reproduction, but the main one is the temperature of the water. The optimum temperature for the reproduction is plus 10-12 degrees centigrade. At such temperature, the time of incubation from a spawn to an eye is 30 days. If the water is colder or warmer, then the incubation time gets longer, up to 45 days. If the temperature is, say, 15 degrees, the process of division is broken. The spawn isn't incubated and dies. Trout tadpoles are very voracious. They are fed every hour, otherwise they will start eating one another. At all stages of breeding, there are 9 categories of fodder according to the weight of the fish. 3 of them are used at the stage when fish weighs under 1 gram. By the age of 3 months, old tadpoles turn into young fish and they are transferred to special small ponds, and the amount of feedings is reduced to 6 times a day. Young fish can easily get sunburned in the pond. That's why we use sheds there. Here is one interesting thing. Trout doesn't have its own temperature. It acquires the temperature of the environment. Young fish like shade very much, so it is under the shed where they bunch together. These sheds are also a good shelter from enemies, and birds are the main of them. When young fish are 6 months old, they weigh 7-8 grams. There are 40,000 of them in this pond. There are 191 reservoirs in the farm that cover nearly 8 hectares of the water surface. The depth of the small ponds is 1 meter. The large ones are half a meter deeper. The water in the pools is cool in any season. It is extracted from underground artesian springs. It is lifted from the depth of 45 meters, and before supplying it into the pool, it is dispersed to be enriched with oxygen. Trout likes pure cold running water. The process of trout breeding is very laborious. Something is constantly being washed or repaired in the farm. Every 2-3 months, the fish is caught out and removed to pure water. The ponds that got dirty are carefully cleaned and disinfected with common salt and blackstonia. It takes 24 hours to clean one pool properly. We take care of the trout health very well. To prevent any disease, we catch out some selective young fishes and send them to the lab to be checked. In the lab, we study the scale and the internal organs, whether there are any ecta or endoparasites in them. In Adler trout breeding farm, the fish haven't fallen ill for 20 years. Only 2–3% of the total amount dies because of injuries. We reduced the amount of fish in the pool so that it wouldn't be too packed. It takes 11–15 months to breed a big marketable fish from a young fish. Everybody knows that everything develops differently in nature. Trout is not an exception. Stronger fishes develop faster than the weaker ones, and the difference between the fish born at the same time may be significant. That's why trout should be assaulted 2–3 times during its lifespan. A grown-up trout is really predatory. It has 84 quite sharp teeth. Big fish is fed with special imported fodder twice a day. To receive 1 kilo of trout, one has to use 1 kilo of fodder. Being predatory, trout prefers fodder full of protein containing fish flour and the flour made of shrimps and little crayfish. The latter gives the trout flesh red color. At first the flesh is white, but the bigger the fish, the redder its flesh is. Vitamins, oils, cod liver oil, and dried milk are also a part of trout fodder. 5,700 calories per 1 kilo. Adler Trout Breeding Farm is a unique scientific research center working on selection and breeding. Here they keep broodmare schools of trout. These schools form a trout gene pool of Russia. As we have already mentioned, the farm boasts of having the first collection of trout breeds in the Russian Federation that consists of 3 breeds of foreign selection: Donaldson's trout, trout Kamlaops, and steelhead trout. 2 breeds are created in the farm: trout Adler and Adler amber trout. Besides the above enumerated breeds, there is a broodmare school of the Black Sea salmon in the farm. It has over 2,000 males and females. The history of the farm started in the far-off 1963. Adler Trout Breeding Farm was founded by the command of the Russian Cabinet of Ministers. The construction started in 1964, and 3 years later the first tons of trout were produced. 19 pools were made and the first material was brought. 80,000 of 1-year-old fish from Estonia and 2 million items of impregnated spawn from Denmark. A full system farm was launched. The farm with a full production cycle that comprises receiving and incubation of spawn, young fish and 1-year-old fish breeding, production of marketable trout, creating of reproductive broodmare schools of fish. By the year of 1970, the farm was able to supply all the sanatoria, holiday makers and the citizens of Sochi with fresh dietary fish all the year round. In 1971, it became a state trout breeding farm, and 3 years later it reached its planned production capacity of 100 tons of marketable fish a year, and was awarded the status of experimental and demonstrative. Trout breeding has been paid the major attention in the farm since the very first days of its existence. In 1983, it was awarded the status of the main trout breeding farm in Russia. In 1996, it was turned into the Federal State Unitary Enterprise Trout Breeding Farm Adler. It has been named like this since then. Besides, in the same year, the Russian Federation State Committee on Testing and Protection of Selection Achievements registered a new breed of trout, trout Adler. 6 years later, one more new breed was registered, Adler amber trout. In 2003, the farm put into the operation one more pool complex with the capacity of 400 tons of fish a year. It helped to solve the problem of increasing the volume of output. By its technology and equipment, the enterprise has no equals in Russia. Trout is much in demand, and the volumes of production and sale are growing year by year. Trout is one of the major components in our menu. It is the environmentally clean product of a very high quality. Besides live fish, the farm sells cold smoked trout, carcass fish, fillet, soup sets and byproduct sets. One can also buy fresh salty trout caviar here. It is made by the following technology. At first, fresh caviar is coated with hot salty solution. It takes 2 minutes only, then the solution is poured off. The caviar is salted and washed simultaneously. As soon as the last grain of caviar gets down to the bottom, it means that the caviar is ready. It is gathered into a sterile gauze tissue and hung up for 8–10 hours. They salt all the spawn taken from the firstly spawning females because the very first spawn is rather small in grains and it isn't considered to be good for further reproduction. Aдлер trout breeding farm deal with commodity enterprises too. The main part of spawn, that is 20–25 million grains, are impregnated and transported for further reproduction to many places of Russia and to Belarus. Every third trout living in Russia is from Aдлер by origin. To be carried to other regions, the spawn is packed in special containers by special technology. The thing is that 1 grain of spawn lives without water 24 hours only. They lay the spawn out very carefully and then cover it with ice from above. There are approximately 50,000 grains of spawn in each container. Of course, nobody counts them one by one. We make an extract of 10 gram, count the amount of grains in it, and then multiply them by the amount of kilos. To keep on the reproduction of the breeding school of fish, we leave 5 million grains of spawn in the farm. Today we produce up to 700 tons of trout a year, though the total production capacity of the farm is 575 tons. We also supply all big supermarkets in the south of Russia with fresh fish. Such impressive results became possible due to constant perfection of bioengineering in fish breeding, along with thorough selective work. We introduce scientifically proved technologies that allow us to breed new breeds of trout with high rate of growth. By using those breeds that have a long spawning time, we managed to increase the spawning period from September to April. It allows us to receive reproductive material all the year round and to use breeding nurseries at the most. The farm is constantly developing, and now everybody can enjoy a wonderful taste of this famous Aдлер trout. Truly Tsar's fish.